Yes, I could go with this one because it's my favorite all-time sports fight song. Number 3 on the charts in 1979. Pittsburgh Linden Elementary in music class, we had to learn this song. Nobody complained. Sir Beano Cook also went to elementary school, Linden Elementary, and David McCullough. And the name of this program is Tri-Cities Sports Now, where we own the Tri-Cities on 1420 WEMB Sports Radio, because I got the best guests and the hardest-hitting opinions in the market. Today's show, old friend Caleb Calhoun joins us at 12:30 talking all things Vols, and I'm going to talk about something Vol, or Tennessee Volunteers, that actually has to do with We Are Family and that song here and today. Just a minute. And then at 1 o'clock, he couldn't make it yesterday, so he's going to make it today. Jerry Bonkowski, the Right Rev of Rev, or Speed.com, Sirius Radio. He's going to join me, and we're going to talk a little bit about the race at Talladega. Chevy actually won a race. What do you think about that? Who would have thought that it was possible now that a Chevy car race, the way that this season has been going? I mean, you know. Who would think that the Pittsburgh Pirates could actually win a World Series? They haven't done it in 40 years. They're in first place about a week ago. Now they were 5 games out. I mean, you know, just... But I'm talking about this because it's a happy birthday to one Philip Mason Garner. He's 70 years old. From Jefferson City in Granger County, the University of Tennessee, and for that matter, Knox Bearden High School. Before embarking on a Major League Baseball career that would see him set the record for highest batting average in the World Series, and also lead the Houston Astros to their first ever pennant as a manager. And he's also been a guest on this radio station back in 1996. I remember the day was Albert Bell had just signed with the White Sox. And he was still the manager of the Milwaukee Brewers, who were at that time a member of the American League Central, along with the White Sox. Store there in Granger County, buy cookies for 3 cents, sell them to prisoners in jail for a nickel. I kind of admire that. Moved to Knoxville to take part in, Knox Bearden's very famous, high school in East Tennessee. And I don't believe they had a baseball program in Granger County. I could be wrong about this, but I don't believe they had. Played there, went on to play for the Tennessee Volunteers. They played fewer baseball games back then. In college baseball, 33-game season, 1969, he hit 12 home runs. I mean, that was Phil Garner. It was actually, I think he led the nation in 1969 college baseball. Home runs per at-bat. So, think about that. Or home runs per game or something like that. But he was only 5'10", 175 pounds. And his body type, therefore, was just average. Wasn't all that impressive scouts. I mean, that season I tell you about, one scout said, so he said he hit a home run. Saw the scout the next day. 1 home run doesn't mean anything. Next day he hit 2 home runs. Never saw the scout again. Straight from the Montreal Expos, but then he was taken by the Oakland A's. The start of their dynasty, really. Early 70s, I guess 71. And draft that they had. They used to have a draft in January, as well as a draft in June, the baseball draft, okay? And the January draft was a little different because the January draft was sort of a secondary draft, but there were ball players, legitimate ball players, including Phil Garner, who were selected in it, but only this was a little bit bigger production than just think kind of baseball used to have 2 drafts. But the summer draft always was a little bit bigger than the winter one, but he was taking winter draft. First round, Oakland A's, signed with them, a couple of years using the majors, became a starter in the dynasty. They won the division that year. He was a starting second baseman, but A's didn't go to the World Series that year. They were swept by the Red Sox in the playoffs. There were only 2 teams that made the playoffs in each league back in those days. And then in 76, Charlie Finley started selling off his A's stars. He, Reggie Jackson went away. So did, I believe, Catfish Hunter, Ken Holtzman. And so it was kind of the big stars were gone in 76. And he hired Chuck Tanner to manage them. And Tanner said, okay, we're going to have the bats, or we're going to just run. We're going to steal all kinds of bases. And they did, and they finished second place. And then Tanner was actually traded to traded. A manager was traded to the Pirates. And he was from Western PA. He wanted to manage the Pirates. The Pirates at that time were a very good organization back in the 70s. And so he was replacing Danny Murtaugh. He thought that was, the rainbow's end and all that he was going to be the Pirates manager. Okay. And so he became the manager in 77 and tries to build his team. He wants Phil Garner. Pirates trade 6 players to get Phil Garner, including a third of the pitchers who had pitched for them in 1976. They wanted Phil Garner. And you'd recognize some of the names. Doc Medic, Dave Gusty. I mean, they're good. Doug Bear, Traded Tony Armas for the 8. Armas would go on to lead the American League in home runs, but they wanted Phil Garner. And Garner's big league stats might not have been outstanding. He was a .260 lifetime hitter, but they weren't bad either. And more importantly, he played 3 different positions in the infield, drove pitchers crazy by being a consistent threat on the base pass. It's nothing for him to steal 30 bases in a year, and he contributed in the clutch. How much so? 1978. Pirates they have an awful year. They're like 11 games under 500, mid-August, way out of the pennant race, and then all of a sudden they get hot. They get hot like you can't believe. They win 24 games in a row at home. They take the pennant race to the final weekend of the year. In that process, Garner becomes the first player in the National League in 77 years to hit Grand Slam home runs in back-to-back games. That's pretty clutch. Now, those We Are Family Pirates, and I played this fight song, the We Are Family song to begin the show. Willie Stargell, obviously the unquestioned leader of the We Are Family Pirates, but Garner had his own contingency. You have to understand the Pirates were a very, very diverse team all over the country and really from different lands. I mean, Bert Blyleven pitched for them. He was born in Zeist, Holland, for crying out loud, let alone players from the Dominican Republic, from Mexico, from all over, Appalachia. There were 2 players from East Tennessee on the Pirates in that era. One was Garner from Jefferson City via Knoxville, and the other was Irwin and Johnson City. He was born in a hospital in Johnson City, but grew up in Irwin. Ed Whitson. Whitson officially was traded away in the middle of 79 for Bill Madlock. It was a good deal for the Pirates. But, Whitson won a couple of games for the 79 Buccos, and they won the division by 2 games. So there you go. But Garner, he was known in there, and I remember talking to Whitson. He said Garner was just great. Here I am from Irwin, Tennessee, young kid. You knew East Tennessee, and hey, here we go. But Garner used to get into locker room arguments with Dave Parker, who was a 78 MVP. And Parker was a African-American, Mississippian, and a physically large man. And like I said, Garner, average build. He's from Appalachia. He's from East Tennessee. These 2 guys would get into locker room arguments, arguing over baiting each other, going them, getting them back and forth. They were extremely politically incorrect. They made each other better because they would challenge each other, and the rest of the team would just rejoice in listening to these arguments. The way that, you start thinking, it's the famous meme now where 2 guys get into a Twitter battle or something. You put that meme of, eating popcorn or something. That was the way it was in the Pirates locker room. It actually brought the team together. And yes, we are family. Now they talk, I want to scream when I hear Boyd Sports talk about it. We're the Boyd Sports family. I'm like, no, that's it. Don't give me that this company, don't manufacture that slogan. it really meant something to the Pirates in 79. There was something legitimate about it. In fact, Ed Whitson once told me, he played 15 years in the big leagues, 5 different major league organizations. I mean, the closeness of the Pirates of that era is very famous, but he even confirmed it. He said, look, I have never played on a team that was as close as those 79 Pirates or those late 70s Pirates. They truly had everybody's back. It was very good locker room, even if Garner and Parker were screaming at each other over everything. And when I say everything, I mean, I don't know. We're talking 1970s. Think an Archie Bunker debate, something like that. That would happen, okay? 79 Garner, it's 293. That's career high. He hits 8th in the order. He starts at both third base to begin. Like I said, the Bucks trade Whitson for Madlock. That moves him over to second. Rennie Stennett was not the player he once was after he broke his ankle a couple years before, so he became the starting second baseman on the 79 Pirates. They go to the World Series. First inning, first game, Garner commits on his very first play in a World Series an error. It leads to 5 Orioles runs. They go on to win 5-4. Used to say, I'm going to be 70 years old in East Tennessee, smoking my corncob pipe, grandkids on the knee and saying, damn, first play in the World Series, I make an error. He made up for it. He had 500. That's the all-time batting average in a 7-game series. Phil Garner. There's your trivia question of the day. The family, as the Buccos were called back then, they had to overcome a 3-1 deficit in the series to win it. It was Garner who insisted the Pirates not make travel plans for a potential Game 5 loss that may have been the first step in the Buccos' comeback. When Garner triumphantly clapped his hands after scoring an insurance run in the 9th inning of the 7th game, it was apparent the family's comeback was complete. And when the Pirates returned to Pittsburgh following the World Series, Garner came off the plane wearing a Tennessee Vols t-shirt. Now, of local note, he became a team game, National League. In the meantime, he had his own banner at Three Rivers depicting him as Yosemite Sam, lived next door to Teresa Hines, and performed We Are Family with Sister Sledge during a concert in Pittsburgh. Houston in 1981 for their pennant race. He helped them win the second half division title. There was a split season back then, first time since 1893. Garner would go on not only help the Astros win that second half division title, but a playoff game. He scored the only run in the 11th inning against Los Angeles, second game National League Division Championship Series. He stays with the Astros until 87. He shares the highs and lows of the franchise. They went from playoffs to second division back to the playoffs in 86. Career ends in 88, does Phil Garner. He's placed on Houston's coaching staff in 89. 3 years later, he becomes the manager of the Milwaukee Brewers. He stays at the helm through their transition to the National League and helps the small market Brewers compete against superior competition with strategies relying on manufacturing runs, a deep bullpen, and engaging relations with both players and media. There were few managers ever better at media relations than Phil Garner. 2004, Garner replaces Jimmy Williams as the manager of the Houston Astros. He inherits a 500 team at midseason, takes them to the playoffs where they beat the Braves in the division series before falling to the Cardinals in the 7-game NLCS in 04. Next year's Astros wins the division. They then vanquish both the Braves again. Remember, he replaced Jimmy Williams. Williams, a Bobby Cox disciple. And I've always had, the old Pirate fan here, a lot of pride in that because it was Cox who fired Chuck Tanner, and Chuck Tanner was the mentor of Phil Garner. And so now not only does Garner replace